Chapter 15. When he made it back down the mountain, he stayed in his tent for 3 days because of the weather. He was deciding on whether or not to stay and try the mountain again or just head back to the coast. His incident scared him though, and he didn't want to try the face again. After chain smoking to kill the boredom, he decided to open what he'd brought for a victory when he summited. It was a can of marijuana. He started smoking it in the tent, which in turn made him hungry. He started making oatmeal, lit the stove to melt the snow, and then smelt something burning. He turned around to see that the match he used for the stove caught his tent on fire. He put the fire out, but now his tent had a hole. To make things worse, he burned his hand when trying to put out the flames. The tent wasn't his. He borrowed it from his father. Krakauer's father had quite a temper and lots of expectations for his son. He wanted him to be a doctor or at least a lawyer. He also taught Krakauer how to climb. When Krakauer was a teen, he started to rebel. Instead of being a doctor, he became a carpenter. Their relationship fell apart when Krakauer learned some family secrets, and he wasn't able to forgive his father for some time. Krakauer's father had polio, and 30 years after he got it, symptoms started showing up. He wound up in a mental asylum outside of Portland after trying to commit suicide, while Krakauer was there. His father wasn't able to get him to be a doctor, but that ambition became his drive to climb mountains. After the weather started to clear, he tried climbing the north face again. This time he only made it 120 feet before turning around. The weather got worse and he had to make it to the base camp. When he got to the glacier, he couldn't find the camp, so after looking for it for an hour on skis, he decided to hunker down where he was and wrap himself in his bivy bag. Krakauer knew people sometimes died while climbing mountains, but in his mind, when he started, he never was able to think that he was in any danger. The storm cleared enough for him to find his base camp. He realized he would never be able to climb the north face. Instead, however, he decided to summit regardless, but using the south side. On May 15th, the weather cleared, and Krakauer climbed to a ridge just below the summit. He camped there, and at night he could see the lights of Petersburg. He imagined everyone at home watching TV or hanging out, and never felt more alone in his life. He left early in the morning for the summit to beat the weather. At one point, it was almost like his first attempt with his axe only hitting rock, but he managed to make it to the summit. He only stayed a little bit to take some photos, then he climbed back down. A week later, Krakauer was camping in Petersburg. A fisherman pulled up and introduced himself. He said it was his day off, so he was showing his family the glacier. He asked Krakauer if he was hunting or something. Krakauer told him he was climbing the Devil's Thumb and that he'd been there for 20 days. The man didn't believe him, but gave him a lift to town and offered to get Krakauer a hamburger and a van to stay in for the night. Krakauer couldn't sleep, so he went to a local bar. Talking to the locals, nobody really cared that he climbed Devil's Thumb. He stayed late playing songs on the jukebox until he was told to stop, then he went back to the van. A month later, he was back in Boulder, Colorado at the same job but with a raise. He realized that mountains weren't able to fix his problems. McCandless and Krakauer both had problems with their fathers. They both thought running off would help fix things. And likewise, Krakauer believed that the only reason he came back from Alaska, not McCandless, was down to just chance. Perhaps they were both too young to understand what death means, not just to the person who dies, but to everyone around that person. In any sense, neither of them wanted to die.